Wish I could get that at home.
We'll just have people follow you around. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a native Arizonan, born and raised. Well, my wife will tell you I'm still being raised. But, grew up in Mesa. I'm a 4th generation on my mom's side and 5th generation on my dad's side.
Wow.
So I can't get away from anywhere I go being around family, which can be a good and bad.
Right.
It's a checking point for me, I should say. But my wife and I, between us, we have 12 kids. I know that sucks the air out of the room whenever I say that, but between us we have 12 children. 8, I better get this right, 10 of them are married. We've got close to 28, 29 grandkids. I say that because a couple of them are pregnant right now.
Wow.
So we're waiting for the other two to arrive. Yeah.
Real quick round of applause.
That's for my wife more than anything else.
I was just imagining Christmas morning.
No, please don't. It's a little early to imagine that, but it's a lot of fun. It's pretty enjoyable. Our kids are, for a blended family, our children have been really good as far as being respectful to each other. I can't be grateful enough for my wife and for my kids. That's why I do a lot of things that I do. I was asked one time by a school teacher, what are you doing for a living now? Because I've had different professions that I've done. I shouldn't say professions, but different entrepreneurships that I've done over the years. And I remember looking at him and saying, I've been in the same business I've always been in. That's the family business. And so it's about what you do, it's who you do it with. That's what it's all about. So I've enjoyed that.
Wonderful. That's very nice. When were you elected?
In 2016, took office in 2017.
Great.
So,
And you served which areas of Pinal County?
District 2, which is a portion of Queen Creek, part of Florence, the Anthem area, and then a lot of the Santan Valley area. So the distinction there is that the Santan Valley area is, though, is all county. It doesn't, they're not a municipality or anything. So roughly there's about close to 140,000 residents that I represent for the county, which is well over a third of well over a fourth of our county. We're close to 450,000 residents in the county. So a large population of the county is within my area.
Yeah.
Geographically, I'm the smallest. So to give it in perspective, the county is about the size of the state of Connecticut. 5,200 and something square miles is what it encompasses. We have 5 districts on the Board of Supervisors, and I'm number 2.
Wonderful. What are some of the things that you're working on right now?
No, what am I not working on? There's so much to do, and I was pretty overwhelmed when I first came into the office, especially with the size of the population that we have. And a lot of our infrastructure, which we need a lot of work doing, is our infrastructure that we have. We grew pretty fast, not only us, but Queen Creek as well. And we weren't able to keep up with a lot of the growth as far as our roads, the infrastructure. And so we're having to deal with that today. And so, and also with budget cuts that we've received as counties and as cities from the state, meaning our HERF funds over the years. And we're just starting to get some of those back and some of the lottery monies. Those help, but it still put us behind. So we're still fighting against that, trying to make up the difference. And so it's very difficult to do.
So you mentioned HERF. So one of the things that the state did last session, 2 sessions ago, was add a tax onto, a fee onto the license plate. It was originally projected to be $18, turned out to be $32, and it was designed to pay for the Department of Public Safety. And now there's a strong push to repeal the $32, so that's going to go away, but there was no alternate funding put in place for Department of Public Safety. So what do you think might happen with HERF, and how does that affect the average person?
Well, right now, I know the state, we're we're becoming plush again. The economy is growing and everything of that nature is happening moving forward. But what happens whenever that starts to slow down? Well, the natural recourse is for a lot of our legislators and for our governor is to actually readjust, rob Peter to pay Paul, to make sure that their budget balances. And that's difficult for us as cities and the counties, because that generally comes from our funds that were allocated. For instance, the HERF funds were designed originally to help pay for our roads and infrastructures that we have, and not necessarily to fund the highway patrol. But because of the discretion of the governor, he's able to sweep those accounts and use those dollars. And so it's difficult, and it makes it very tough for us as a county. Now, I support Governor Ducey. I do. I think he's done a phenomenal job. But it's not just him that's done that in the past. I mean, we've shown 7 years that that's happened. So the prior governors to him, and they were Republican that did that. But when you're in those budget constraints, you have a tendency to do stuff like that. I mean, we as a county, we cut back on some of our own things years ago, which we had to. It was either do that or you come up with additional revenue sources. And so there's a balance that you have to try to find. And I'm not advocating to be a governor or anything else of that nature. I got enough problems where I'm at right now. But the problem is that I believe that there needs to be some funding mechanisms in place that would pay for those other entities, like the Highway Patrol. That's what I believe. And so, I mean, you think about HERF and the gas tax, that hasn't been raised for I don't know how many years, and when that was originally put into place. So there has to be some other funding mechanism or some other cuts somewhere else, but definitely not in our infrastructure. The infrastructure itself is what helps us with our commerce, which helps with our economic growth. In those areas, we have to continue to sustain somehow, some way. So something has to happen for the future.
And speaking of something has to happen, so ADOT was telling us, the Department of Transportation, that in the next few years there will only be enough money currently at the current budget levels to pay for maintenance, no more construction, which in your section of Pinal County and Queen Creek area altogether is pretty bad. We need all kinds of new lane miles. And so Pinal County put together a sales tax, much like Maricopa's. I believe it was Prop 500, a regional tax authority. But it was held up in court. And
Yeah, I think you're referring to Prop 416 and 417. 416 was the actual designation of where that, the acceptance of a north-south corridor, which our voters unanimously, or I shouldn't say unanimously, we did have opposition. We were hoping that it was going to be unanimous. But it did pass. And so that part, along with that, was a mechanism put into play so that we could help pay for that. All right, and that was 417. That was passed by the voters, and then what ended up happening is that it was challenged by the Goldwater Institute, and they won the first round, and so we appealed it, and so now it's in appeal. And we've already filed briefs, amicus briefs by the town of Queen Creek, the town of Florence, and all the other municipalities within the county. Along with the county, they're suing the county for the tax. But all of our municipalities have gotten behind us to support what we're doing and what we've done. Now, where that all plays out, we'll know in the next couple of months. I believe there's some hearings planned for November. That the actual hearing itself, but all the amicus briefs and everything's been filed. So we'll get a better feel for what's going to happen. The bottom line is, and now this is something I was always taught, I'm not a big advocate of taxes at all, but they're necessary. They're needed in order for us to maintain our infrastructure, for our protection, things of that nature. That's where we get the funds to be able to do that. But I've always learned, I've always been taught that if you can't get help from outside help, then you need to take matters in your own hands and find a way to be able to accomplish your needs. That's one of the reasons why I advocated for the tax, because to me that was us actually taking matters in our own hands as a county, as a communities, to be able to improve our infrastructure. That's one of the reasons why I advocated for that half-cent sales.
And the model is very similar to the Maricopa County.
Oh, yes. Right? You know, the other night, it was interesting, you know, ADOT had did their hearings the other night, and one of the individuals got up and he spoke about how Maricopa County, with all the freeway systems and everything that they're building, the 202, the 303, the 101, and all these, at least they're keeping it simple for us, right?
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3. But with all the construction that they're having there, they're able to move the traffic around very efficiently and effectively. You know, during the growth period, I mean, granted, we understand that. But the bottom line is they've made reference to what's happening over there. What they don't realize, in that statement I recognize, was that Maricopa County, the citizens of Maricopa County, voted on those excess taxes to be able to build those freeways. Same way with down in Pima County. A lot of the construction, the things that's going on down there, the citizens voted on these things. That's all that happened here. And so that's the thing that I think we need to continue to remember. Now, during this appealing process, the judge that ruled against us has continued to allow us to collect the tax, because he sees one of the Goldwater's arguments was that it was maliciously done by the county, which he ruled against. And he said that is not the case here. It was not maliciously done this way, in particular trying to deceive the taxpayers. It was never done that way, and he ruled in that favor. Thus the reason, I believe, for us to allow us to continue to get at the tax, because in the appealing process, that may get overturned. So that's what we're hopeful for.
So you still have the savings account, if you will, that's building up so that
Yes.
you'll eventually be able to construct some of those roadways.
That is correct. We probably have about 26 million right now. This in the reserves in less than a year that it's being collected, which says a lot about what some of the projections. We're on line for what the projections were as far as the collecting of that, what the reserves were going to be.
And that'll build the additional freeway, and then there was also some connectivity between places like Coolidge and Florence and Casa Grande.
Correct. And then some of those dollars will be allocated in some of our more rural areas to help in some of their infrastructure as well. For instance, our sister cities on the eastern part of the county, they'll receive some of those funds to assist in some of their road constructions and things, their improvements that they need to be making. So, but for the majority of it, it's all that north-south corridor freeway and all the connectivity between them.
And we've mentioned that a couple of times, but I'm not sure everybody knows about the north-south. So what will north-south do, and where are we at in that process?
Well, whenever it went before the citizens, one thing that we had to put in the ballot itself was specify that all these things would be in alignment with what the impact studies were going to be, and everything in that whole scenario. And one of the things that whenever we did that is that those studies still needed to be done, okay? But there was 3 different alternatives that were discussed that was actually shown in our meetings with the communities that it was proposed to whenever we did the tax and whenever we proposed putting it on the ballot. And so there was 3 different directions. Well, I'll tell you right now, for the majority of the people within the Santan Valley, the Queen Creek area, even Apache Junction, and quite honestly, the majority of all of our communities that are here within Pinal County, the option was, and the county was behind that, was the one that actually comes closer towards Santan Valley. Not through Santan Valley, out of Ironwood, but more out, and starting at the point of the 60, where it actually makes the bend, and then works itself back towards Santan Valley area, and then back over towards Florence, and then loops around down, and then heads due south all the way down to this I-10. And so whenever the impact studies came back by ADOT, everything that's chosen is for the farthest east that we possibly can go. And based on my figures, it's about 8 miles from Ironwood all the way out. That's how far out the projection is that they're coming back and suggesting ADOT is. And that was this meeting. They've had 3 different hearings, and they have to do that throughout the county. And we just had one here on the 15th out at Polson View High School. The best thing that the people could do is go online through ADOT, and they could actually go into the north-south corridor and give their input, written input. And that's the thing that I think is going to have a lot of impact. So if there was anything that I could plead and ask for of our citizens on all different areas, is that we go in there and we voice our opinion about that corridor, the direction that we as a county have supported, and that's the one that brings that alignment closer to the Santan Valley area. I say this for a very important reason, is we have a group called Pinal Partnership, okay? And Pinal Partnership, I spoke with one of the members of that who was one of the original individuals that put it together. And I asked him why Pinal Partnership, what was the purpose behind it. And the whole reason behind it was the infrastructure. That's what it all began on, was the roads. And they came up with a plan almost 30 years ago, okay, for a north-south corridor. And when I tell people about what this map looked like, it was where the 24 comes off of the 202, and it comes to the Meridian Road alignment, and then it was head due south on Meridian Road, down to Rittenhouse and the railroad tracks cross, okay? Then it was to head in a southeast direction down towards Attaway, and then head south and wrap itself around Eloy and Casa Grande and go over Coolidge and then come out and tie into the 8, but also extend down to the 10. That's what originally these individuals came to Queen Creek, Maricopa County, Pinal County, Apache Junction, Florence, and all the other cities that were here 30 years ago, along with ADOT, state of Arizona. And I believe we missed the opportunity there. And all it was asked was just set your preference, set it to where in a planning process, don't necessarily need to buy those right-of-ways, but establish those right-of-ways so that in future growth, we plan accordingly. We need to start doing that a lot better than what we've done. And that's one of the reasons why this north-south corridor, has been talked for years. And we finally got it off the ground when we put it in there. Moving the traffic out that far east really does nothing for the residents that are over here that are already being, and quite honestly, suffering. Now, you go to a third world, it's all relevant, right? And so when I use the word suffering, we need to keep in mind, keep it in perspective too. But the convenience of it, especially with the way our system is set up, and we pay taxes, and the individuals that are going to benefit from it being that far out is not really us as citizens that are here currently. It's the future growth. But it's so far out that the future growth is probably another 50 to 75 years out for that kind of growth to happen. And so that's where I believe we need to push back and at least look at some other options of getting the connection here first. You know, somebody said to me, he says, why are we just planning on one area anyway? We need to be planning even more of these type of systems, these freeway systems throughout the entire county. That's what Maricopa County, if we're gonna use any good example, what they've done over here in the Phoenix metropolitan area with the 202, the 101, the 303 and all that, we should be also looking at it in the future. for the next 50, 75, 100 years. Same way with our water supply. And so we're probably going to talk about that too, I would hope.
We're gonna get to water, that's right.
Because we have a lot of things going on in the county right now. We have Lucid Motors that have broke ground in Casa Grande. And you can say that Casa Grande, or you can say Casa Grande.
Casa Grande, if you're here.
But you say it one way or the other, I've been told by Supervisor Miller, otherwise you don't get it right. So don't go back and forth. But in Casa, and so I say Casa Grande because it's easier for me. But the Casa Grande area, we've got Lucid Motors that's going in there, and the projection there is about 1,500 employees. Now they're more of a high-tech company that would be manufacturing, producing electric cars, much like Tesla, and it's a higher-end car. But it's impressive what they're doing and how they're moving forward with their efforts. They plan on being probably in production in the next year and a half. The cool part about that is they've been working with our local college, Central Arizona Community College, and they developed some education programs that'll help the employment. As far as they'll have individuals that will be trained in those fields coming right out of the college to where they'll be able to go right into the workforce. I would like to see our schools do the same thing, to where even on the high school levels, where they're working with CAC College. Utah is a good example of some of the things that they've done on these stackable certificates. And where they've actually, by the time the kids are graduating out of high school, they've walked in some of those areas into jobs that are paying $75,000, $80,000 a year. Boeing has a manufacturing plant, and so does Caterpillar in parts of the state of Utah, to where when they put that all together, working with their local community college and with their local high schools, they've been able to generate that kind of a program that, I mean, that's almost unheard of. And they come out with a stackable certificate that is equivalent to an associate's degree in college, right out of high school. So we need to be thinking along some of these lines, especially if we're going to compete in the national market. So we've got that, and then we've got Nikola, which is a semi-truck production company that will be producing a combination of hydrogen and electric semi-trucks. My understanding is they've got a contract with Anheuser-Busch for 800 of these trucks. That's going to be built down just south of Coolidge, close to Eloy. And so, and they've already acquired the land, and they're already moving things forward to be able to start. I don't know exactly the dates when they're going to break ground, but that's going to be employing another couple thousand employees. So those are two major industries that are coming into Pinal County within the next 2 to 5 years.
And all the more reason we need that infrastructure in place, particularly between the municipalities.
But you think about Santan Valley, 80% of our residents leave Santan Valley to go to work. Most of them come this direction, as you guys well know, right? Councilmember Brown. Okay? They come this direction. They come into Maricopa County for work. If we can reverse that and bring some of the workforce centers here within the county, and I say that with you here, Councilmember Brown, because we have some unique opportunities right over here, just on the other side of Meridian Road, that you guys just annexed. But we need to protect some of that employment opportunities, employment centers. I think of CAC Steel. Rather than building homes around CAC Steel, we need to put it in a place to where it protects that. I think they told me 65 to 70% of their workforce there at CAC Steel comes from the Santan Valley people. That's within a matter of just a few miles for some of those residents to go to work. So we have to find a way to protect employment opportunities, even though it's in the city of Mesa in Maricopa County. It's still a lot closer and a lot less stress on our traffic and on our roadways. We need to start being proactive, bringing those type of industries into our county. Let's start focusing on some of the growth here, like what they've done in Glendale.
And some of that is what the chamber is working on. So we have an education committee, a workforce readiness committee that works with the high schools and the community colleges and higher ed, all working on making sure that the alignments are in place for what industry needs and the education component in the CTE program. So we agree 100% on that. And getting that infrastructure in place is going to be very important. The north-south corridor would help us immensely, hooking the 60 to the 10 so that we don't have to drive so far west to get there. But you mentioned the other component of the infrastructure, water.
Water.
So there's a couple of interesting things happening in Pinal County right now. One of them I don't know if you want to speak to, but the farmers, as part of the drought contingency plan, are supposed to begin pumping groundwater instead of using CAP Colorado water. And in order to do that, they need new pumping infrastructure, and that's going to require a lot of money. And then I understand in the original estimates that they projected that they would pump so many millions of acre feet or gallons, but they did it on an even basis, and they don't need it on an even basis. When it's growing season, they need to pump a lot, and when it's not, so the pumps have to be a little bit bigger than what they expect. So all of that leads us to money and water.
Money and water. Yeah. Whoever controls the water, controls the money, controls everything, correct? Controls the growth. And so one of the things that we've been actually active at work for a lot of years, the county has. I know a lot of the citizens that we have don't understand and some of the demographics and the way the structure is all set up anyway. But we as a county are in a unique position. We're the only county that has 3 different active management areas. Now that active management area, what that is, it's a groundwater area, and it's that water table that's within that area. So we have 3 active water management areas, okay? We also have a 4th area that is not an active management area, and that's just due east of us, along the Superior, all that on the eastern part of the county. That's not even in an active management area. There's a lot of water over that area. But the other 3 areas that we're talking about is Pinal AMA, okay, which is the Coolidge, Casa Grande, Florence, Eloy, Maricopa County area, Maricopa areas, all right, city of Maricopa. Then there's the Tucson active management area, which is our southern corner, which is probably Saddle Brook, parts of the communities that are down there. Then there is the Phoenix AMA, which is primarily those of us that are in Santan Valley area, just up to where where Magic Ranch and that area is. They're in the Phoenix AMA, and then Apache Junction, Gold Canyon. Okay. The report that the Arizona Department of Water Resources came out with shows in their models, all right, they're showing that we're 80,000 acre feet of water short, okay? Now, to put that into perspective, because that more so than the 12 kids that we have, will suck more wind out of the air because people begin to panic, and that's what's happened, is we get a lot of feedback and pushback. Why are we building more homes and things like that? What that means is that because of the commitments, by the way, that ADWR has given, they're the ones that give these certificates showing that there's a 100-year supply. So I don't know where they missed the mark, but with their report, they've overcommitted 88,000 acre feet of water to all the build out. Now, right now, we've got 177,000 rooftops in the county. That's how many homes that are built in the county. 80,000 acre feet, that shortage that they say that we have is 200,000 additional homes, approximately, a little less, 197,000. So with that, if we were to build everything out, we would be 80,000 acre feet short because of what ADWR has committed. And that's according to their models. We as a county we've never known that number from ADWR. They just came out with that number. We've been asking for that number for years. And so they've tried to do their models and everything to give that. So now what we're trying to do, and what we're actually doing, is we have a group called the Pinal County Water Augmentation Authority, and all of our cities are part of that, along with the county. And then we have 2 or 3 private water companies that are in the Pinal AMA. That's where we're short, is the Pinal AMA. That's where the majority, a large portion of the shortage is in Pinal AMA, not in the Phoenix AMA, not in the Tucson AMA, but the Pinal AMA. Now that shortage also includes our farmers and what they're doing. Now when we built the CAP canal, and it started in '73, ended in '93, when that was all built, that was to help take away the pumping of water, taking the groundwater and using the surface water to assist the farmers. They were the ones that were pumping a lot of the water. These homes weren't here. And so the CAP canal was actually built to assist the farmers. So when this all came down, the shortage of water that they've been going through, or the projection of shortage, because we're not there yet. We could have some great snowfalls and some great rains to replenish our reservoirs, and those are either religious. Hope and pray, just like anybody else, that the good Lord blesses us with those substances so we can fill our reservoirs. But if that doesn't happen, at some point there's going to be a critical point. And when that critical point happens, then there's going to be a chain reaction. That's whenever they're going to pull back and stop sending water down to our farmers in Pinal County, in the Pinal AMA. So we're trying to be ahead of the game here. And the projection is within the next 2 years. If we don't get the rainfalls, if we don't get the snowfalls, we're going to be at a critical point to where we're going to have to cut back on the farmers. Well, the last thing we need is for that to go fallow, because we're just going to have a dust bowl at the end of the day. So we've got to find the additional water resources to help keep this going. $2 billion a year in production in agriculture from Pinal County. $2 billion. 40% of our dairy products that you and I use in our homes, in our families, comes from Pinal County. That's a lot of production that the Pinal County has on the agricultural side. So to think that we're not actively involved as a county looking for additional water resources, and some of the things, people thought clear back in the 30s and 40s whenever they were talking about the CAP canal and digging a canal system and lifting that canal system 2,900 feet